Well, this is not an interview so much as it's like a fireside chat. I have to say, so for those of you who don't know who I am, since everybody knows who Wendy is, I'm Michelle Waters-Butler, and I've been a friend of Wendy's for about, 15 years or 16 years?
Something like that, yeah.
It's been a long time.
A long time.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Wendy has been a mentor to me, a friend, mom, but I don't know. I've never seen you much as a mom, but you're a really important person in my life, and certainly I'm incredibly honored that you asked me to do this with you. That's really incredible. I think probably because the danger in having us talk, though, is that we're really tangential. So, like, if we start going off topic, like talking about dance classes or interdimensional travel, just try to, steer us, just get us back in. So, we're going to talk today, though, about your book, your memoir. I know that this is something you've been working on for at least a decade. I mean, I remember when you first started writing short stories about your life, and starting to develop that. And so this is something that's such a huge accomplishment. And certainly we'll talk about that process, but I just want to say, congratulations.
Thank you.
So many people dream of doing something like this, but the effort that it takes to actually see it all the way through and get to the place that you are today with it is a huge accomplishment, Wendy. I'm so excited that you're here celebrating it today with people who love you and whose lives you've touched. Certainly that's me as well. And so now we can get into it. But Mother Load, let's talk about, I feel like we should first talk about the title and the imagery on the front of the book.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for coming, first off, and thank you guys for hosting. If I could just say one thing about, a lot of you don't know that I wasn't out about my story, and I was in marketing, and a lot of times I would do these events and not talk about that part. It was compartmentalized. So there were people that I had to call and say, I have something to tell you, and can we meet for lunch? And I met these two, Kristen and Suman, for lunch, and I gave Kristen the synopsis. And she was reading it out. I go, read it out loud. And she was reading it loud. She goes, what? What? You shot someone? I said, I just winged her. So yeah, it's truly coming out in public for me. But the cover was a collaboration. I've got some talent in the family. Rikki took the photograph, and I had the concept of a load of laundry, dirty laundry, because I was about to air my dirty laundry, a load of laundry, and a loaded gun. So there's a lot of meaning to that, and we met at Have a Soul headquarters and did the shot there. So that's how that came to be.
And that title, Mother Load, so the meaning behind that.
Mother Load is not, for me, the book is about the absence of a mother and not having a mother as a child. And, my mother was schizophrenic. It was always a secret, it was something we weren't allowed to talk about. Mm-hmm. And so, I was kind of conditioned that way. And even when I started talking about my mother, I felt like I was breaking some family contract that I had, and that it was like a secret, and I was conditioned not to talk about it. But the absence of a mother, and then to the point of getting sober and then becoming a mother and being present for my boys, Rikki and Jerry, who are both here today, and my grandkids back there, who are amazing athletes, Matthew and Mark. Woo! I'm so, so it was like learning how to become a mother from different women in the program, and you know,
Sure.
just being sober.
Well, it's an awesome story, and
Thank you.
I think, you know, in reading it too, and of course knowing your story very well and your history very well. So I think, you know, you broke free, right?
Right.
From sort of that unconscious narrative, right? Or it's like, you know, playing out sort of, you know, you talk about it in the book about basically, you know, becoming your mother, right?
Right.
Of becoming crazy or becoming, you know, and how do you break free from that, you know? That's a huge part. So what prompted you to write your story? And especially, you know, this particular story?
Well, I wanted to help people. I felt like that I had a story to tell, and I wanted to help others. And when I was writing the book, I had the idea 20 years ago. It took me 10 years to write it, and then I found a safe writing group at Karen Gutman's house, and we did workshops. And it was like I was so scared to come out about it, but and then it took another 10 years to actually get it done. I feel like I've been so supported by, we had writing groups at Tori's house, people reading my bad drafts, so read this, and it's like, and it was crap. It was really crap. And then when I finally got something done at the end, I had Shauna's amazing expertise here at the very end that helped me midwife it, to what it is now. And so it's been a process, but I wanted to speak to just a little bit about what you were saying with my mother. It was interesting that my mother was 38 when she had a psychotic break and killed herself. I was 38 when I had a psychotic break and went to jail, and once you lose your mind, how do you get it back? I'm fortunate, that as I got sober, my priority was to heal the relationships with my children and stop the trajectory of alcoholism, mental illness, to one of healing and recovery, and I wanted it to happen immediately, but it takes time. It takes time, one day at a time.
Yeah. And I know you've mentioned, in terms of, the target audience for the book, are women, people, and women, especially, I think, who have been through a similar situation,
Right.
Who feel hopeless, right? Or that they can't get out or unstuck from what they're stuck in, and certainly your experience in prison, I know has been a sort of an impetus for you, right?
Right.
Of who you want to reach.
Yeah, I often felt as I was writing this, it was like, again, breaking conditioning. I go, I can't do this, I can't do this. I would get physical reaction and feel sick sometimes from writing some of this stuff. And so I often thought about girls in juvenile hall, girls in jail. And it was like interesting that two people donated one person donated 30 books and one person donated another 20, and I couldn't get them into jail. I tried to go, for those who aren't in AA, there's like hospitals and institutions, and they wouldn't let me in jail because of my weapons charge. So I wanted to go in there and talk to those girls. And so it was like writing the story, I wanted to get, it got in. And again, Tori helped me get it into to women's jail. And it's like, having friends in high places, it's like, I only had friends in low places.
Not anymore. Now they're all up there. Look how high they are. Dawn did like a little jail, behind bars.
I'm in a crib. I'm very safe right now. My inner child feels really good in the crib.
It's interesting. Like, as I was reading, and it's funny because I've heard so many of your stories through the years, right? But one of the things we weirdly had not talked a whole lot about is, sort of the experience of being in jail, which was for a year, right?
Right.
And
I got good time, work time.
what's that?
Good time, work time, so I got out a little early.
Good.
Yeah.
It's my girl. So when I'm reading it, I felt like you were there. Like I felt you were able to be in that moment. I didn't feel like I was reading Wendy today, reflecting upon being a wild youth. Like I really felt like you were, that you were there. They were that girl, How was that for you dipping into that moment, which is, it's a lot of trauma, that's a scary time of your life. How was that process for you, getting into that? And I would imagine tough emotionally.
Yeah, some parts were tougher than other parts. Obviously, there was extremely sad situation. There's no, denying that. It's like, I said I'd never be like my mother. I swore I'd never be like my mother, but that was like giving the universe the exact coordinates to where I would later land. It's like being away. My mother would go away to mental hospitals and get shock treatment, stabilized, and brought back home over and over and over again. And there I was going to jail, and my sons, that's a sad situation. And the thing that I wanted people to know, mothers that have made mistakes, or fathers that have made mistakes, or kids that are pissed off at their parents, that there is the ability to heal. There's a ripple effect from alcoholism and addiction, but there's a ripple effect from recovery. There's a healing that takes place if you're committed. It was difficult. It was really difficult. So I wanted to give hope to people, and just give some perspective. So it's a very scene-driven book. It's scene after scene, and like piecing together. There was a lot more I could have done, but that's going to be in my second book that I'm working on now. But did I answer your question?
Does everybody feel satisfied with the question? The question was really, was it for you personally dipping into those scenes of your life? I would imagine, it was challenging. So, but I think you addressed it.
Well, I think that one of the things that I was afraid of, how everybody that is in the book, I've changed a lot of the names in the book, but some people were the same. My sons were the same. Ruth King from Claire Foundation stayed the same. And, so some people's names stayed the same. And I was like, am I going to get a lawsuit? I changed my ex-husband's name. But, both my boys, are so proud of me and happy, and my older son called me. And then I was like, when I got a call last week from my ex-husband, he said, oh my God, I love your book. He says, I want to read it again. And he was emotional, and it was like, he just like, he forgot a lot of, that stuff. He forgot a lot of it. And it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. So, this book is actually about my healing, but there's been a lot of healing transpiring since the book.
Right. Well, it takes so much, courage to be that vulnerable, right? Like it's the shame and the guilt, and being able to be that real and that authentic and sharing, like just laying it all out there, which I know wasn't like some easy breezy thing for you to do, like that is really what's so magnificent about, the process. And I would imagine, the healing in just the writing process as well.
Well, I don't know if anybody's watched that documentary with Brene Brown, I feel like I'm in the arena right now. It's like I could choose to be comfortable and keep the secrets and not talk about it, but what trumped that desire was my desire to help people, to be of service to somebody. I kept imagining women in jail reading this book, because when I was locked up, the only book I could get my hands on was like The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. It was like there wasn't enough to read in there. There weren't any examples of women that had come out the other side. I've since seen many women that have come out the other side, but I wasn't seeing it in jail. I wasn't seeing it in juvenile hall or any of the institutions I'd been in. So my purpose was more important, or trumped the fear that I had.
What would you say to anybody who is in the process, like in a creative process, because it's hard, right, to complete a work, right? So, I mean, certainly in terms of creating, whether you're a writer, a musician, if you're an artist, whatever your medium may be, it's what is the value of creating? And then what is, any tips in terms of getting unstuck? Because I would imagine you've been stuck at some points along the way of this process.
So finding people you trust, people that that you trust, that you can give over this work that you did, or you can read this in the room and feel like they've got your back. I mean, it was so important to me when I was doing my first workshops that I was about to expose myself, and the boundaries were so set, and the person had created such a safe, Karen had created such a safe space that I felt safe enough now to let it out. I use prayer for breaking through blocks. I mean, that's just what I do. It's like, I can't write this. I call on the universe, write it through me. Write it through me. Because there were times I wanted to run. There were times I questioned, I go, what the hell are you doing? You're going to put this shit out in the world? I can't control what people know about me anymore. It's like I can't control it. It's like everybody can pick up the book and, so it's like, but, I'm grateful that I did. It's just, I've been incredibly blown away by the support of people. I mean, I'm totally blown away by how people have rallied around me, all of you coming today. It's like, oh my God, just like opening up your home. It's like, it's incredible. It's like incredible as an experience when you open up your heart and you take a risk and the universe responds,
I know that's been a huge surprise for you. That so many people love you. But I love like that you're that, that's because, you're magical and humble, and, it's funny, I was talking to Sandra outside, and I don't think she knew that, like, who you were in my life, and she's like, I just love Wendy. She's like a mentor to me. I'm like, oh, I remember being your age, Sandra. and Wendy being that person for me too, and it's so cool. Like, how cool is that? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, our relationship has had so many levels over the years, and it's really amazing to see, like, the people that you touch and, like, get to talk to them too, because I know you're magical, you know what I mean? And so it's just a beautiful thing to see everybody support and love you, and this incredible accomplishment. I don't even know how we are on time, so I just want to be mindful of that, because I know you're going to read a passage. Right. Obviously, your life today. Let's talk about, like, what's next for you creatively. You said you're going to do a book and another book. You're in the process of writing.
Right. I am in the process of writing about my adolescence because, well, I don't know how much I revealed in the book, but my adolescence was, I work at Polaris Teen Center, which is for kids struggling with mental health. And when I was struggling, when I was a teenager, and the places that they shipped me off to or made me a ward of the court. So I thought it would just be helpful. So I'm writing that right now, and I guess about 15 chapters in. And
Wow.
yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah.
And then your life today.
Well, my life today is, I just want to mention Have a Soul. My son, one of my sons started Have a Soul, and I'm very involved with that. It's, this story, if you don't know it, is somebody, when we were living at that shelter, Claire Foundation, and there's a lot of board members here from Have a Soul, and, it's, somebody bought my son a pair of shoes. I couldn't afford to buy him a pair of shoes. And then when he was struggling in his life, 2 decades later, and he was a sneakerhead with 150 pairs of shoes, that lined an entire wall, he decided to give some of those shoes away. And since then, we've given away over, I think, 16,000 now. And Nike is a big contributor, and it's a beautiful story, and it's a beautiful organization, and I'm very involved with that. I'm involved with Polaris. I'm talking to, I probably shouldn't say anything, but executive producer from Criminal Minds tomorrow. So, it's like I don't recognize my life, It's like crazy, But I want to say that I'm extremely proud of my older son, Jerry, who is an amazing father and takes his kids to basketball practice, and my grandsons are crazy athletes, but Jerry is just such a stable figure for his boys. Both of these guys
Aww.
I'm so proud of. I just want to say I love you. Both doing their own things, but in just so beautiful, and we could have been like a sad statistic,
And that's a testament, to all that you've done, with your life. And I mean, I'm just so honored to know you and have you in my life. And thank you for completing this so that other people can be touched in that same way. You're really an incredible human being, Wendy, and I know that everyone here wishes you success with this.
Thank you.
Yeah. So on that note, I love you.
I love you too.
You're gonna read a passage.
I'm going to read a passage from the thing, from the book. Where did it go? Over here. This is, I read this passage for KPPC, Unheard LA, and some of you were there. But this is the story, this is the part of the story where everything changes for me. And thank you, Michelle, for doing that. I love you. It was Mother's Day, 1993. And I was living in a small apartment at a women and children's center in Santa Monica. Rikki, my 10-year-old son, was asleep in the bedroom while I was slumped down on the sofa watching Stephen King's The Stand with a new friend, Janet. Fresh out of jail on drug-related charges and having separated from my husband of 20 years, it would seem like I had finally hit rock bottom. But even so, I still wasn't sure if I was ready to stop drinking forever. If being sober meant no more random sex with strangers, what the hell was I supposed to do with all my free time? When the phone rang, my heart leaped to my throat. I knew it had to be my 19-year-old son, Jerry, who had been using drugs. I looked over at Janet, who gave me a reassuring smile before I went to answer it. Hello? Hey, Mom, I'm coming over. I'd been giving Jerry a place to stay occasionally. But there were rules at the center, and one of them was being no drugs or drug use allowed on the property. Janet warned me I was risking getting kicked out on the streets. I'm sorry, Jerry, but you can't come here unless you're ready to get some help. Screw you then, he slammed down the phone. It felt like a sucker punch in the gut. It was the first time I'd turned my son away, and I was instantly filled with regret. Are you okay, Janet asked. I wasn't. I went silent and stared at the television screen, feeling like I had made a huge mistake. 10 minutes later, there was a pow, 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 pow. It sounded like a gun. I peered out the mini blind from the second floor on 11th and Pico and saw a body lying in the crosswalk below. Someone had been shot. As a self-centered addict, I was conditioned not to get involved in other people's business. And that would double if the cops were likely to show. But maybe because it was Mother's Day, maybe because my son just hung up on me, or maybe because I was newly sober, I did something completely out of character. I rushed out the front door, down the stairs, and across the street. The victim was around 19 years old, my son's age. He was face down, wearing a black and white plaid shirt, with one arm raised over his head, the other one along his side. I didn't see any blood, so I dropped down on my knees to get a better look. I leaned over, and there was a long strand of saliva hanging like a single guitar string from the corner of his mouth. A throb of panic rippled through me. What the hell am I supposed to do now? I don't even know CPR. I looked up at the people gathering on the sidewalk, and as if to read my mind, a woman yelled, I called 911, they're on their way. A rattle sounding like a marble rolling over corrugated steel came from deep inside his lungs. Part of me wanted to run, but it felt like an invisible curtain had come down around us. It was just me and him. Please don't die, please don't die, please don't die. Finally, I heard sirens in the distance. Within minutes, a dozen patrol cars were on the scene, and for the first time, I'm relieved to see this many cops. A few minutes later, an officer was standing over me. Are you his mother? No, I live up there, I pointed. Then you need to get behind the line, lady. I didn't want to leave the boy, but I knew it was pointless to argue with authority because they always win. The officer led me by the back of my arm to join the other onlookers. A woman with spongy pink curlers shuffled over and said, what do you think happened? He's been shot, I said. Who could do such a thing? I knew it could have been anything from a drug deal gone bad to a random drive-by, and I knew it could easily happen to Jerry. Finally, an ambulance arrives and things started to happen really fast. 2 paramedics rush over to the boy, they flip him over and listen to his heart with a stethoscope. Within seconds, he's on the stretcher. And just as when they're going to load him in, one of the paramedics reaches for the defibrillator in the back of the ambulance. I'm craning my neck to watch as they rip open his shirt, apply pads, and send a jolt of electricity to his failing heart. Please don't die, please don't die, please don't die. Moments later, he's loaded in the back with white lights flashing, sirens blaring. The ambulance takes off, headed up Pico Boulevard. A cop yells to everyone, the show is over, people. Unless you saw something, you can all go home now. I needed a cigarette bad, so I went up to my apartment. Janet met me at the stairs. Are you okay? I went past her and went directly for the pack of Cools on the coffee table. My hands were shaking as I struck the match. It's a sign something bad's gonna happen to Jerry. I should have never told him he couldn't come over. That's when my brain, a finely tuned torture device, started to spin. If ever I deserved a drink, this would be it. No one would ever know, and who could blame me if they did? What stopped me from heading to the liquor store? I didn't want to see all those cops again, and there was a small boy asleep in the other room. My only means to escape would have to be to sleep. After Janet left, I grabbed the bedding and headed for Rikki's room because I didn't want to be alone. I spread the blankets out on the floor. I could smell the pre-adolescent musk hanging in the air. I stopped to watch the gentle rise and fall of Rikki's chest. I thought of Jerry. I desperately wanted to call him, but those were the days before everyone had cell phones. Please be safe, please be safe, please be safe. As I laid down, my thoughts were coming at me like the rat-a-tat-tat of an AK-47. I felt all the classic signs of a panic attack coming on. The tightness in my chest, the shortness of breath, and then something happened. Something I still find hard to explain. a presence entered the room. Through the ceiling in the form of a soft, shimmering white light. Cascading downward, it poured itself into my heart and spread out across my chest. The static in my brain completely stopped. I went from being overwhelmed with anxiety to an absolute state of peace. Silence. I somehow knew everything was all right. Always had been all right and always would be all right. It was a feeling I had never had in my entire life. Eventually the light slipped away and I was able to fall asleep, but the next morning I was obsessed with finding out what happened to that boy. Was he alive? Was he at the hospital on life support somewhere? I asked everyone in the building, but no one knew. It wasn't until later that afternoon when a neighbor came by and told me the boy had died. I felt such an overwhelming sense of sorrow, not only for him, but his mother as well. I wanted to find her and tell her that her son wasn't alone, but I never did. For a long time, I wondered if it was the boy's spirit that I felt that night. And while I still don't have an answer, I've learned there are things in life that remain a mystery. And now that I'm older, I'm mostly okay with that.